Welcome, Silicon Valley. Come on, you do better than that. Welcome, Silicon Valley. Welcome to Idea to IPO. My name is Rob. I organize Idea to IPO. We've been doing events in Silicon Valley for many, many years. We launched officially on February 1st, 2010. At that time, we had no members and no events on our calendar. At this stage, we have over 500,000 members among all our meetup groups all around the world. We've organized, promoted, and produced over 4,200 events. By any standard, by any measure, we're the most active, most prolific startup event organization in the history of Silicon Valley, bar none. Thank you. Thank you for all your support. We hold venture capital panels, legal workshops, networking events, and more. We hold an event every day of the week. Check out our schedule at ideatoipo.com. Our mission is to promote entrepreneurship, support entrepreneurs, build community, and provide value in the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. To that end, we provide content that is practical, actionable, and relevant, stuff you can actually use to succeed as entrepreneurs. We believe in building community because Silicon Valley is a global aspirational ecosystem. It attracts people from all over the world who come here to do great things. Who here is not originally from Silicon Valley or the greater San Francisco Bay Area? All right, well, who here was born and raised in Silicon Valley or the greater San Francisco Bay Area? Oh, not bad, like 7 of you. Well, welcome, natives. So whether you were born and raised here or just arrived last night, it's important for us to provide multiple channels for you to meet people, build relationships, and grow your network. With regard to value, it's important that we provide value at each and every one of our events. Not just value for your money, which is important because we know many entrepreneurs are struggling financially. So we make sure our events are free or affordable. And if you cannot afford the cover charge for whatever reason, come talk to me and we can work something out. And at most of our speaker events, we make sure that we provide a delicious buffet. Is that a delicious buffet? Come on, is that a delicious buffet? More importantly, though, at each and every one of our events, we want to make sure that we provide value for your time, which is your most valuable resource. Anyone here getting any younger? Besides that young man and this young lady? So when you invest your valuable time to come to our events, we want to make sure that you maximize your ROI. We have many partners that help us do what we do. Law firms, venture capital firms, angel investor groups, incubators, accelerators, colleges, universities, and lots of other players in the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. Tonight, we're grateful to Kenyatta College for hosting us at this beautiful venue. Is this a beautiful venue? Is this a beautiful venue? Yeah, so in addition to Kenyatta College, I would also like to thank some of our partners who are here tonight. I would like to have them come up and say a few words. So let's hear it for George and SVB. Applause.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is George. I'm from Silicon Valley Bank, SVB. So, as you probably heard, 7 months ago, we've had a little bump in the road. But honestly, if I had to say the best case scenario happened for us, we have a new parent company, First Citizens Bank. They really admired what we've been doing in the startup ecosystem for the past 40 years. And essentially just told us to go business as usual. So now we are doubling down on having more events, quality events like this one, where we have Vinod that's going to be speaking in person and partnering with Rob and Ideas to IPO. So definitely we're going to be doing more of these events in the future. So for those few of you who don't know about SVB, we are a tech-enabled bank, but we're also the 16th largest bank by deposit in the US. So we are back in business. I just wanted to say that my team, or the group I'm a part of, is startup banking. So we work with companies from ideation through Series A. Once you've hit that Series A, we help you moving on to the next group that helps you up to IPO and beyond. So we like to help you every step of the way. And then lastly, my role individually is how do I help my founders beyond banking? So I just wanted to say that again, welcome everyone. And if you guys want to chat, happy to, we'll be in the back at the end of the event and be at the after party as well. So thank you again, and see you guys later.
All right, next up we have Ken and Cordify. Applause.
Thanks, Rob. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good? Good. All right. Right. So, Codify, we are an IT services company. We do technology services or software development services for startups. We align ourselves totally with startups. It could be fresh off the batch. Founders come to us with an idea. We do ideation to MVP and everything beyond that. We also have some large clients, but being in the Valley, our main focus is startups. We are based here in Sunnyvale. We have an offshore development center in India. We do development across cloud, web, mobile. We have all the services that are available. And of late, we've actually also see that a number of startups come to us and they don't have a technical founder. So we have started a new service called fractional CTO services. So as a founder, if you're going to start a company and you don't have a startup and you don't have a technical founder, you don't need to wait for the technical founder to join you. Just come and talk to us. We will provide you all the services that a technical founder can do, including pitching to VCs and everything and so on and so forth. And we don't charge you a ton of money. We charge you by the hour. So come talk to us. We'll work out something for you. Have a good evening.
All right, next up we have Wallace and Metis. Applause.
Thanks, Rob. I'm Wallace. I own Metis. We're a real estate brokerage that operates here in the Bay Area as well as LA. So we're here to partner with you, whether it's your personal lives, your employees, or your office. So if you're looking for a home or if you're looking for office space, come and meet my team, talk to us. We're happy to help. Thanks for coming.
All right, next up we have Sam and Fundable Startups. Applause.
You know, people climbing Mount Everest have no use for general concepts like go up, bring warm clothes, and stay safe. That's completely useless and unactionable. So what I try to focus on, because it's the same thing with a startup founder, you need the same type of feedback and input. So my name is Sam Wong. I run a company called Fundable Startups, and we lead with a startup training academy called Fundability Before Fundraising. I've been a CEO, a CTO, and a technical VP of 5 different startups with 3 exits. I wrote a book on startup execution, okay? And I basically am doing training that I wish I had when I was a first-time CEO. It's really, really hard because there's lots of people who tell you what to do, but not a whole lot of people will help you with how to do it. How do you build a funding strategy? How do you tell a story? How do you demonstrate to an investor that you have de-risked your startup? Those are hard things. So a lot of people here in this room have taken our training class. Raise your hand if you have. I'm happy that you guys are here. But we've been told we have the broadest, most detailed, and most actionable training available to help you build a fundable company. So go to our website, fundablestartups.com/hello, to sign up for a free giveaway. We're giving away a $900 training package tonight in a drawing. It's just go ahead and go to the back table where we have a where you can scan a QR code. Once again, fundablestartups.com/hello. Thank you.
So though our local mission is to support entrepreneurs here in Silicon Valley, our global mission is to democratize entrepreneurship and innovation all around the world. To that end, we maintain a robust YouTube channel, youtube.com/idea-to-IPO. Check it out. We have tons of videos there. And this rich, valuable content is available on demand, anytime, anywhere, totally free of charge. Our partner in this endeavor is Tim Jiggers, one of the top professional videographers and digital marketing experts in Silicon Valley. So let's hear it for Tim. Applause.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody. So I'm Tim Jagers. I've been doing photography for over half my life, do filmmaking for a full-time living. I cover events. I make promotional content. I got one of my associates in the back working with us tonight, David. Everyone say hi, David. Oh, that was weak. All right, anyway, I make content, though what makes me different is I kind of learn what my clients want versus just like, hey, here's a video. There's not a lot of communication between creators and people looking for content. So that's kind of what sets me apart. If you have any questions about what I do, you can reach out to me after the event or reach to me on my website, pacificbaymedia.com. And yeah, thank you for coming, everyone.
Okay, so here's the schedule for the rest of the evening. Our distinguished featured speaker and our moderator will hold a brilliant, compelling, dynamic, entertaining, and scintillating discussion, no doubt. At 8 o'clock, we'll open it up to questions from the audience. We'll end the formal program about 8:30 p.m. As a courtesy to Kenyatta College, we would like to leave this building by 9 p.m. However, there is an after party, and here are the possibilities. The Rosewood. I know it's Thursday night. The patio. Or Pizza My Heart. Or some undisclosed location, but more on that later. So Chris is backstage. Vinod is on his way. He'll be here in a minute. However, since this is a theater, I want to do a short rehearsal because when they come on stage, I want to give them a massive Silicon Valley welcome. So let's take one. So when I say, let's give it up for Vinod and Chris, I want to hear you guys give it up. So let's give it up for Vinod and Chris. But you can do better than that. So I want you to stand up and do a standing ovation. Give them a standing ovation. So let's give it up for Vinod and Chris. We'll sit down. So, but we can top that. And so you're going to get up on your feet and you're going to jump up and down and whoop. So let's give up for Vinod and Chris.
All right, fantastic. Oh, yeah, I love the sound of that
Exciting to
amplification.
see so many people come out.
Well, we're going to make sure we use your time effectively tonight, Vinod. So we're just going to go ahead and launch right in, and we'll have a conversation. But then we're going to open it up and let the folks in the audience ask their questions. I know they have some burning questions. So you guys get ready to ask your questions at the end as well.
Great.
So Vinod, the first thing, of course, you've been a venture capitalist now for nearly 40 years. You've built unicorns in multiple industries. So I think the question on everyone's mind is, what are the fundamental trends that have driven your investment decisions, and how have they changed over the years from the 1980s until now?
So, the first thing I'd say is I've been doing venture capital for almost 40 years. I've never actually called myself a venture capitalist, and I don't invest. I think I'm in the business of being a venture assistant, an assistant to companies and work with entrepreneurs to build companies. And there's a big difference between trying to invest, which is more running spreadsheets, and trying to build large companies and assuming if you do well in building large companies, you'll get a good return anyway. And to your second part of your question of what are the trends? The world has seen so much innovation, and it's not slowing down. So I'm 68, and my hope is, health permitting, the next 25 years, I'll be doing exactly the same thing. And every 5 or 10 years, what's exciting and new trend will be something that we aren't thinking about today. But it's pretty clear, at least now, some things that will for sure happen. I'll give you a perspective. I'm fundamentally an optimist. And as horrible as COVID was, and as horrible as the Ukraine war was, I think those two started two of the largest drivers for innovation on the planet for the next 20 years. Why do I say that? What happened with COVID is the world realized they are dependent on policies in China. If they want to quarantine everybody, the supply chain gets wiped out. And the world is committed now to getting a supply chain that's diversified beyond China. And that'll take 20 years and mostly be driven by technology innovation. What did Ukraine do? Convinced the world they can't rely on Russian gas. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, if I'd said to somebody, oh, Germany can get off Russian gas, people would say you're dreaming. Today, it's already off Russian gas. So it's created an energy transition which will kickstart the whole climate-related transition. So there's two large things that are happening. And the third positive leg of the stool was AI. AI will enable all these things to happen. So I think we are seeing probably the most exciting 20, 25 years of technology-based innovation in very traditional industries.
Fantastic.
Which is an optimist view.
Yeah, no, and I think that there are many people who share this view. I'm very interested, just to double click on one thing, which is you mentioned, of course, the supply chains being rejiggered, the dependence on Russian gas being reduced, AI, of course, coming in. Do you view this as a reduction in globalization or is it a change in globalization?
I think it's a large change in globalization. Point dependence on sources, whether it's Ukrainian wheat, Russian gas, Chinese manufacturing, and the world really wasn't paying attention to how vulnerable the world was to individual policies. Look at China. Produces most of the world's steel. We can't be dependent on that. Most of the world's electric car batteries, we can't be dependent on that. Most of the world's rare earths, I could go on. And most of the world's manufacturing. Moving all that out of China is an exciting opportunity and in very unusual ways. So I have 10 large predictions, and I won't go through all of them. They can come up in the conversation. Like 3 months ago, I said, over the next 20, 25 years, and these are all imprecise predictions, so I don't make precise predictions, but they're directional trends as you were asking. Everybody, today, if you read about lithium or cobalt or manganese, and I know this is not what you guys came here to hear about, you'd say we don't have enough of that. And my prediction is next 20, 25 years, we will discover more resources than we will consume. And so we invested in AI to look at all kinds of sensing and satellite data to see how you discover new minerals. How do you look a kilometer under the earth? Nobody's even looked at it in the past. And we're starting to say, can we do that without drilling? Because drilling, you can only drill so many points. You want to span all of the Earth's surface area to say, where's the best lithium? Where's the best cobalt? Where's the best copper? So that's just one little example of AI affecting things you didn't think about, driven by the demand for climate transition or electric vehicle transition, as well as general electrification away from oil and gas. So all kinds of indirect effects, and that's why did I make that forecast? Because I have relatively high belief, I can't be 100%, but 80% chance, 90% chance I'm right, we'll discover more minerals because now we have an incentive to look. The price of lithium has gone up 3x or something in the last couple of years. Way more interesting to look for lithium now than it was 5 years ago when nobody believed in the need for lithium. And so people are looking. So between incentives and new tools like AI and new sensors, we're working with all kinds of oddball physics to say, can we discover more minerals and move them out of China?
One of the things that strikes me about these predictions is in many ways it's a reflection of your investments in AI, the fact that we are finding ways to substitute computing for other things. We substitute computing for drilling. We substitute computing for these things that happen in the traditional.
My favorite is we use computing to substitute for doctors and oncologists and mental health therapists and everybody else. Yeah, no, I think it's a good trend. You know, another way to think of it is, I think, and I hate to say this at a college, most expertise will be free within 25 years. Whether you're talking about the best software programmer or the best oncologist or the best financial trader. It's hard to imagine a world in which that's true, but it's a really great world. You know, one of my other predictions is everybody will have a personal physician that's near free, available 24/7 to them, no matter what the circumstances. Today, whether you're in the kibbutz in Israel or in Gaza, you'll have primary care when your child needs primary care. And you know, if you're a village in India, you'll have an oncologist available to you, which in the linear way of training more oncologists, it's not possible to do. So everybody on the planet will have a free lawyer, personal lawyer, so they can have access to justice. Now, most people don't have access to the justice because we can't get a personal lawyer when you need it. One of the odd things which I always found real funny, if you need to file for a bankruptcy in California today, you need a lawyer that you normally can't afford. Think about it. You don't have money to pay your bills. You get to take on debt from a lawyer because you need to file for a bankruptcy. It's sort of a silly word. My wife has a nonprofit. The goal is every child gets a personal tutor that can map out what they know and they don't know, and then tutor to their weakness and the gaps in their learning, what's called knowledge tracing. So, you know, I look at all these areas, and I have such an optimistic view for the next 25 years, as long as health permits me, which AI will help with too.
You know, I think that I speak for everyone in the audience when I say, you know, it's fantastic, the optimism you have for the future. And I think part of it is motivated by the desire to make the world better. And in fact, you've been an advocate for, an investor in what I think people have called transformative innovation. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little about transformative innovation? What do you mean by that? What's different about those kinds of entrepreneurs who are trying to make the world better instead of just make a bunch of money?
You know, so I have a different view of the world. After I turned 60, I said, what do I work on? I don't much like golf. I don't like sailing. I didn't like the idea of what's retirement community to move to. You know, a lot of other people from my business school class were talking about, should we move to Carmel or Arizona or Florida? And I said, what should I work on? And I said, are there large problems I can do that'd be fun to do? I looked at all of US non-governmental GDP and said, what areas could one have a technology-based impact on? And I was shocked to learn that there's no area of US and global GDP that you can't dramatically impact with technology. So I framed the problem the following way. About 700 million people on the planet have a rich lifestyle. And by rich, I mean rich in education, rich in access to medical care, rich in housing. We have real houses, comfortable houses, rich in transportation, we can get to where we want, rich in entertainment, a very broad view. And there's 7 billion people, going to 9 billion or so if projections are right, that want that lifestyle. Can we produce 10 times the number of cars, 10 times the number of roads, 10 times the number of... It's just not possible. The good news, that's a desolate picture if the world's going to live, all of the world is going to live like the top 10%, which I believe is possible. But when you frame it in technology, can you multiply resources where each resource goes 10 times further? It's absolutely not only possible, it's very likely. And so I wrote a paper a few years ago. This was sort of my paper for myself, but I published it on, I think, Medium, and it's on our website, Reinventing Societal Infrastructure with Technology. I looked at healthcare, I looked at entertainment, looked at housing, said, how would technology really multiply it without needing 10 times the amount of steel for cars, 10 times the amount of cement for housing, 10 times the number of doctors on the planet, 10 times the number of teachers for every kid. It was surprisingly easy to think about real technical pathways to achieve all of this. This was a couple of months I took off and just sort of thought, wrote, and hiked a lot. It is possible. In fact, I'm pretty sure it will happen. It needs a few instigators, which are mostly entrepreneurs, to make it happen.
Well, speaking of entrepreneurs, how many people here in the audience are either entrepreneurs right now or want to be an entrepreneur?
That's great to see.
All right. And how
The world depends on you to make these changes I'm talking about.
100%. And how many of you would like to receive an investment from Khosla Ventures? That's pretty similar. Looks like you got good brand recognition. So I'm going to ask a question on their behalf, which is, how do you choose the entrepreneurs and innovators you work with? How can they become one of the folks that you back in their attempt to transform the world?
First, entrepreneurs matter much more than any plan they send me. What matters in an entrepreneur? A clear passion for a vision. If you're trying to build a company to make money, when it has ups and downs, you'll change your plan. If you have passion for a vision, and it doesn't matter how ridiculous the vision. I'm working with an entrepreneur who said, I want to change public transit on the planet. Like, public transit as a startup, give me a break. We funded it, and the last 2 bids we've done for public transit, we won as a startup against only established competitors because it's such a better way. So, passion for a vision is absolutely number one. I'm passionate about making this change happen, and when the highs are high and when the lows are low, I'll still stay on mission. That's really important, this obstinate kind of persistence. Good entrepreneurs have really good first principles thinking. They don't go with the wind or what somebody else is saying. But they listen to everybody. So they take a lot of input and make their own decisions. And they do their tactics very differently, change their tactics as needed. So it's funny, I'd like to say really good entrepreneurs are obstinate about their vision, really flexible about their tactics, and learning machines. Taking a lot of input and then knowing when to change and when to take the input and when to ignore it. That's what a good entrepreneur is.
Well, speaking of entrepreneurs, how many of the entrepreneurs in the audience consider themselves to be artificial intelligence entrepreneurs? It's the topic du jour. I know
It's the topic du jour.
you have been an early advocate for AI long before ChatGPT. You've invested extensively in the space. What do you see in the AI space today? Is it too late to invest? Is it too late to be an AI entrepreneur, or is it just beginning?
No, I think we are at the very beginning. So I'm very optimistic on the change AI will cause. And, the world doesn't think rationally. They think incrementally. So it was 2012 January, actually, fun story, I was skiing and tore my ACL skiing the day before Christmas. So I had to sit in bed for 2 weeks instead of skiing. And I took an MRI and I took it to 3 different doctors and said, what should I do about my ACL? And each of the three good physicians recommended something different. And I decided the treatment you get is based on the doctor you get, not the disease you have or the problem you have, which is a sad state of affairs. It's so much opinion and not scientific facts. And I started writing a blog, which eventually, I first wrote a blog called Do We Need Doctors? And you can still find it on the web. In the following week, I wrote a blog. I had nothing to do, to lay in bed. Do we need teachers? And it was clear to me by the end of the ski break, it was a very productive break, even though I couldn't ski, that almost all doctor expertise will be in an AI. This was December 2011 when I was doing this. And then it was clear, if you're going to provide really good education to kids, you'll have to have super personal tutoring, which can only come from AI. We can't afford that for all the people, all the kids on this planet. It's just not possible. So having that constraints and ambition at the same time, it was obvious. I got on the AI bandwagon around 2010, 2011. By the way, I still read scientific papers, published papers in AI, keep up with state of the art. So then in 2018, 5 years ago, I wrote a paper probably first in 2014 and then modified in 2016 that was 100 pages long on how to transform medicine, because healthcare is such a large problem. It's still, again, public and available for examination. More and more of it is being believed by most people, including doctors, who were the first to object to this idea that AI could replace them. And I want to be clear, when I mean replace, I don't mean replace them all. It's replace 80% of what they do, so they can really do the other 20% much, much better. What I called even in 2016 the human element of care, coming from a physician, the number of interactions with a patient not being once or twice a year, which is what most people have, it being once or twice a month, so 10x more interaction. It was 2018 we decided to invest in OpenAI. It was around this time in 2018 that we made the decision, because I believed this vision for a long time. And then, of course, a year ago, when ChatGPT came on the scene and got to 100 million users in 4 months, the world woke up to what was really happening for a long time.
Well, that also really ties into my next question, because having been involved in AI for a long time, you've seen boom and bust. And that's true of AI, that's true of Silicon Valley in general, across many different waves. And some people are saying that right now we're in a frothy period in AI. So is there another AI winter coming, or is this time different? And what advice would you give to the founders out there? We saw many of them.
So there's really good news for founders and really bad news for investors.
I don't like the sound of that.
So let me give you a couple of analogies. In 1830 or so, in England, if you got the right to build a railroad between two cities, you could offer scripts on the marketplace. And there was a real boom. Companies essentially going, the equivalent of going public. This is 1830s. And of course, any big sudden boom results in a bust. And of course, the stock market had a bust. But here's what's different. More railroad was built in England in the 10 years following the bust than in the 10 years before. What do I mean by that? The business of building and using railroads had nothing to do with how the stock market value of those companies was perceived. There was a dot-com bust in 1998. Most people who are old enough know that. But that was in stock prices and company valuations. It wasn't in the usage of the internet. So I challenge you to look at a curve of internet traffic and tell me where the dot-com bust was. You can't find it. So we have to separate what's real life, which is building the internet, or building railroads, or building AI, from how investors might value something. This is why I never call myself an investor. The business of AI is going to be in real life, not in stock market perceptions or investors' view of value. Investors only have, how many VCs or investors in the audience?
Don't worry, we're not going to do anything to you. 'Cause your hands are up very much lower than I saw from the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are like, yeah. VCs are like,
There's only two investors, two emotions in investors. It's either greed or fear. And they bounce between these two walls, if you might imagine a corridor, and there's nothing in the middle. If everybody else is investing in AI, then you want to invest in AI. If nobody is, you don't. So booms and busts are natural part of every major trend, whether it's the railroads or the internet or iPhone apps or AI. And we will see that. But good entrepreneurs will build great companies independent of how the value of those companies is perceived. And you have to look past how people are valuing it and say, do I believe in what I'm building? This is why building is much more important than investing. And that's my good news for entrepreneurs. I do think currently most investors who are investing in AI, most will lose money. Most valuations will go down, not up. But much more money will be made than lost because we're building real things for real people, you know.
now I'm
We
going to,
saw this in crypto too, boom and bust. But the things that are based on real life will sustain.
well, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to deviate from the script, and I'm going to ask a question selfishly for me, because I'm investing in AI. What areas of AI should I be looking at? What areas of AI should I avoid? And that holds true for the entrepreneurs as well.
You know, I'd flip it and say there's almost no area where there isn't value to be built. Let me take a lot of different areas. You know, robotics has been around for a long time. There's no intelligence in robotics. It's mostly, any robotics entrepreneurs? A few hands. It's almost all been mechatronics and then rule-based robotics. So I call it mechatronics, sort of very mechanical. It looks like a humanoid robot, but there's no intelligence. It can't learn new things. It can't deal with unusual environments. That will all come from AI. And so I think we're going to see a golden age of robotics. And here's what I would say. If you take a 20 or 25-year perspective, one of my predictions is in 10 years, we'll see 1 million humanoid robots. Human form factor, because the human workspace is designed around human forms. But in 20, 25 years, we'll see 1 billion. 1 billion robots working 24 hours a day will be able to do a lot more work than all of humanity does today. And that industry is going to be larger than the auto industry today. But people behave as if the auto industry is this big thing here to stay, and this bipedal robot industry is this fringe thing. I would venture to guess this fringe will be larger than the auto industry, and even the auto industry will be robotic cars, not the way we think of cars today. And in fact, one of the things we're doing, one of our startups, is this public transit system built around self-driving pods in constrained lanes. Much simpler technical problem, much more utility to society. For the cost of today's public transit, without any public funding, which is the big problem with public transit. Needs gobs of money invested by cities and governments. You can eliminate all that and build a different kind of public transit system and dramatically increase the throughput of roads. If you have self-driving cars, all traffic will bog down. Simulations show clearly you will dramatically increase congestion if you have self-driving cars. That's a bad solution. It's a good solution for one person, a bad solution for society. If, on the other hand, you go to self-driving public transit vehicles, and we're designing a system to be small enough to fit in bicycle lanes. Think about it. A bicycle lane having more capacity than San Jose's light rail system. Throughput will increase, housing will become cheap because people can go more miles out and still only have a half-hour drive to work. That's the way to solve these problems. So, I could go on. AI will have human robots, public transit systems, free doctors, free teachers, free lawyers, free financial advisors. So suddenly the bottom 3 billion people on this planet who need the most financial help and advice will have it available to them, not just the people in the upper 1%. I am an optimist.
No, I see that, and I want to lean into that optimism for a second, which is you've painted us a picture of a world where it's 10 years from now, AI is pervasive, there's 1 billion humanoid robots, they're able to work far more effectively than humans, productivity has gone through the roof. What is the ultimate future for humanity when we have robots and AI that could be more productive than we can? Where do we go with this?
So a long time ago, I couldn't talk about all this, but I have an interview with a woman called Laura Holson in the New York Times, so I didn't come up with it recently, in around the year 2000. And I said, not very long from now, we will have to redefine what it means to be human. But I couldn't delve into because it was so unbelievable. Right? 2014, I wrote a blog in Forbes, and this is all public data from a long time ago. I said, AI will cause great abundance, great GDP growth, great productivity growth, almost everything economists measure, and increasing income disparity. That was in 2014. And it's the first time I talked about, in the last line of this essay, I talked about the need for universal basic income. My view today is we will have to have, because, it's great to talk as entrepreneurs about disruption. It's not a lot of fun when you're disrupted. And the other side of this equation is not very fun, and we have to handle that with great empathy and great care. Because without that, people will block these very good changes that could. I even wrote in 2014, long before ChatGPT or even OpenAI, that the hardest thing to do would be to have people find meaning in life. Now, it's not a lot of meaning in your life if you work in a GM assembly line mounting one tire from one position for 8 hours a day for 30 years. That's the reality of most jobs. It's not pursuing your passion. So I do think we'll have to take care of income. There will be enough abundance to do that. I think we will have to teach people how to follow their passions. Either it's learning, it could be X Games. I'm just a great skier or a great X Games star. It could be America's Got Talent type of, I'm a great singer, musician, artist. You'll empower people to strive to be an artist without saying, I can't feed my family if I take this path, which is the bulk of artists, right? They can't pay for their kids to go to college if they want to be an artist and pursue their passion. I don't know what it is, but I think we will free up humanity to do much more meaningful things, not just have a job you hate. Most people on the planet, even in this country, hate their jobs, but do it because they need to do it. I think the need to work will disappear, and people will work on what they want to work on, independent of its economic implications for their family, when they want to work on it.
Wow, thank you. And I think it's so important, right? You've shown us this vision of abundance, right? People are often thinking
Abundance and humanity.
And humanity. So before we open it up to the audience, just one last question, which would be, what advice do you want to share with people who are, let's say, in their 20s today? What's the advice that you want to give to them? What do you want them to take away from tonight and hopefully put into action for the next 60, 70, 80 years?
Well, first, all this change, I can forecast with high certainty will happen. What specifically will happen is the path is very unpredictable. So people who make forecasts, I say, are not smart enough to know what they can't forecast. That's my only certainty. So people who tell us what the economy is going to do next year, people who tell us what the AI will do in 5 or 10 years, for sure they're wrong. The smart people say, I don't know, but this is the fundamental drivers of these trends. So what is the implications for somebody in college today, and since we are speaking at a college? Get as broad an education. So don't get too specialized very early. Learn mostly how to learn in any area, even if you think you know what you want to do with your life. Almost certainly between 20 and 30, the vast majority, there's a 95% probability you will change your mind on what you want, what you love, and what you don't. And as you transition from single and dating to kids, and then kids in college, and your life will change a lot. Your likes and dislikes will change a lot. And you want to be able to learn any new area. So, just this week, the things I learned, I have reading now set up for Saturday. I need to learn cold atom physics, epigenetic programming of individual genes, and so it's a wide array, is my point, right? And suddenly I have stacks of papers in each of these areas, and I'll collect them and do a lot of reading this weekend. Every week is like that, and so learning where you can learn broadly in a lot of different areas is probably the most important advice I can give young people.
Fantastic, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, Vinod Khosla. But now, our humble leader, Rob, is going to show up, and he's going to lead a Q&A session. There will be opportunities for people to ask their questions. He's going to tell you, though, do not make this a pitch. Do not take this as your big opportunity to pitch Vinod Khosla. Ask a real question.
Yeah,
Robert?
ask a question that's useful to the whole audience.
What do we do?
Otherwise, I won't answer it.
And what do we do to people who try to pitch? What do we do, Rob?
Well, this is not a pitch event, so if you deliver a pitch or a thinly disguised pitch, you'll have to deal with Joe, our bouncer. So he'll be stationed here. So there's a little bit of change in the schedule. Vinod has to leave shortly after 8. So if you have a question, step right up. Here's your opportunity. If you have a question, step right up, ask away.
So really appreciate your perspectives. I was reading Mark Anderson's perspective and manifesto recently. He's called himself an optimist, some of the phrases that you said, universal basic income. I'm curious about your perspective and how that might be different, because it seems like it is.
So I do agree with 90% of Mark's manifesto. For those of you who haven't read it, you can Google Mark Andreessen's manifesto. I'm a technology optimist. You probably heard that. My Twitter headline says technology possibilist and entrepreneurial zealot. That's sort of my description of me. Where I think I disagree with him is in his definition of how the world evolves with techno-optimism. He didn't include enough empathy and caring. We will need and we will have the ability to be much more empathetic. If people can take care of themselves, they start to look outside themselves and worry about helping others. I think market forces work generally, but not with enough caring and empathy. Markets can be brutal, and I think he didn't acknowledge that enough. I like to say capitalism is a beautiful mechanism for economic efficiency. What's wrong, and it's worked well in a world of sparse resources for the last 100, 200 years. But today, I think we have one additional equally large problem to resource efficiency, and in fact, resource efficiency driven by technology will become less of a critical resource. Inequity, income disparity will become an equally large, and has become a very large problem. So I think economic systems will have to optimize both for economic efficiency and income inequality. And so I think we'll have to modify capitalism.
Thank you, Vinod. My name is Preeti Bandanavan. I actually have a couple of questions. One is, I'd love to get your perspective on what would it take to get from here, where we are, to where you see almost like a utopia, right, that you talked about. I'd love to hear like maybe 3-4 different phase transitions we have to go through. And number two, what are some of your favorite books and podcasts that you recommend for this audience here?
You know, many people have a dystopian view of technology impacting society because they don't include things like empathy and caring and humanity as part of that equation. My view is much more utopian, and to get a detailed answer, I'll try and be quick since a lot of people with questions and we have limited time. I spoke at the Wall Street Journal live conference. If you look up the article they published right after that, it was literally titled Dystopian or Utopian AI. Vinod Khosla picks the utopian view. I think I cover a lot of the critical issues, but it is if we do the right things. And one thing I worry about is democracy, which is a really good thing, but it can slow down the adoption of these technologies or these utopian views because many people will get disrupted in the process. China, on the other hand, may use Tiananmen-style policy to force these changes. You know, one of their senior AI guys said to me, you have driverless cars, and the first time they have killed somebody, you'll slow down your development. In China, the policy will be a few people dying is okay if we win the race for self-driving cars. So there are disadvantages to democracy. I think it's a superior system overall, but we can't slow down replacing doctors with an app that is a primary care doctor, or other fields, robotics in other fields, or other kinds of productivity. So it is a real danger. Social choices can slow these down. And in fact, lots of people will attempt to slow down this utopian view. Why don't we go over there?
Hi, Vinod. My name's Albert. Thank you so much for always being so open with sharing your perspectives, especially with being a generalist early on. As someone who has had 6 different positions in different climate tech verticals over 9 years, that's in a lot of doubt through that period. That's very affirming. My question is in 2 parts. One, is there a winner and a loser in climate tech that you are most excited and worried about? And 2, for someone in a very deeply technical experience as an operator, how would you suggest them to pivot into VC?
Well, so the first part of your question, I think we'll see large transitions in climate-related technologies. Who wins will depend on who takes, interestingly, a higher risk approach to innovation. I think people who are trying to take a low risk approach to innovation will have minor innovations, not major innovations. Because innovation by necessity requires risk taking. So I do think there'll be winners and losers. Hard to say who will adapt and who won't. The oil companies are so far resisting. The cement companies, the steel companies, they're all resisting this transition. Interestingly, the auto industry has suddenly decided to transition, but only because Tesla proved there was a different worldview. Until 5 years ago, the world thought they tried electric cars and they'll never happen. In fact, the funny story is in 2010, the Department of Energy, and this is why you should stop paying attention to experts and forecasts, made a forecast for the number of electric cars in 2035. It was a 25-year forecast. Tesla exceeded that number in 2016. So in 5 years, they were wrong by 20 years. So it's about making things happen, not letting them happen to you. And entrepreneurs really make things happen. And I think that's happening a lot in climate. It's happening in other areas too. And the people who make these things happen, as opposed to see what's happening and then be followers, just like everybody went to that side for the mic because they saw some people going, that's most of humanity. They follow the herd. And people who cause change to happen have a chance at winning. I always say to people, try and okay to fail, but don't fail to try. The vast majority of people fail to try, and when they fail to try, they have a 100% chance of failing. If you try, you have some chance of succeeding. So,
And no offense to the people on that side of the room.
by the way, since there's so many entrepreneurs, there's a Harvard Business School case which starts with a quote from me as the first line of the case, which is, "My willingness to fail allows me to succeed." I truly believe that.
Hello, my name is Kartik Gada, and about something you said when you were speaking, non-governmental GDP and AI. Now, government is, of course, almost 1/3 of the world economy, and it becomes less and less productive while the private sector gets more and more, but AI is an X factor. AI will not just listen to the government. The government says, we don't want to change, and AI will say, okay, we won't disrupt you. So how do you see this reconciliation between AI increasing the productivity of the private sector, but government refusing to get more productive, and how do you see that shaking out?
Look, first, I'm not an expert, and I don't have a lot of solutions for governmental GDP. I was at a dinner this week up in Seattle, and This was about a nonprofit effort I'm involved in to build. How many people know the Aadhaar system in India? Quite a few. The dominant payment system is UPI, which has basically eliminated the need for Visa and MasterCard, which is about a 3% tax on the economy. With just Visa and MasterCard, it's eliminated those. And the dinner was about building an open source system that every country in the world could build digital infrastructure. Now, in that infrastructure, whether it was health records or payment systems or government benefits or other things, all done over the Aadhaar system in India. It would allow Nigeria to do its own and Ukraine to do its own. I think that that's a really useful thing. And I was arguing, healthcare spending is a big part of spend. How about free healthcare for everybody as part of digital infrastructure? Free legal care so anybody could access the law, which most people don't have access to in most of the poor countries. Same thing with education. So a whole set of services that could be available as governmental services, reducing government healthcare spend, education spend, court system spend, I imagine AI judges and AI lawyers. So I do admit I have a very optimistic view, but a lot of large parts of government spend can be eliminated. You know, health spend is so large in this country. So I won't go, I could go deep into any of these. Why don't we go to this side?
Yes, Rob, how many questions, how much time do we have left?
Well, we have several, but do you want to have just one or two more questions?
I think
Vinod has to leave a little early, but we have time for a couple questions, so make it
I'll
good.
tell you what, three people can ask questions and I'll try and answer them together.
Ah, I like this.
Hey, my name is Sonia. Vinod, Neeru has been doing some great work with CK12, and you spoke about income disparity, and you spoke about universal basic income. The problem, though, is not just affordability, it's also accessibility. 3 billion people in the world don't even have access to the internet. The poorest country on the planet, Burundi, the GDP or the per capita income is under $290 a year, which is not even $1 a day.
So why don't we keep the questions short so we can...
My question is, what can we, the people in the Silicon Valley, actually do to not just talk about solutions, but actually solve for these problems? And how can AI help it?
All right, Silicon Valley helping solve the problems of the world. Question number 2.
Brian Dronchef here. Thank you again. My question is kind of about the progression of AI and UBI. What happens, or do you think there's a significant chance that if you give people UBI, a lot of the motivation to continue to work will decline and people will kind of maybe lose overall that goal in life and maybe even having kids too much that they destroy humanity faster than the robots can take care of us?
All right, question 2. Will UBI make everyone lazy slugs? Question 3.
Hi, my name is Pravard. I'm going to just read off my phone because I don't want to make it super long. So, as college grads today look to either join or launch their own startups, what advice would you give them to make an actual meaningful impact? Because nowadays, a lot of kids are just starting startups just to get into college and then abandoning them.
So let me try and answer these questions together. Who's good at math? Okay, this gentleman. I'm going to ask you a question. Over the next 50 years, so imagine per capita GDP is 70 grand in the US. If you had 2% GDP growth, what would it be in 50 years? Yeah. Okay.
No, it's compounding. It's compounding.
It's simple compounding. It'll be about $175,000. Now you move 2% GDP growth to 4% GDP growth. What do you think the per capita income is? Anybody a guess? $500,000, right? That change in GDP growth creates so much opportunity for redistribution and sharing. That's sort of my view. I do think things like AI will change GDP growth, real GDP growth, and I can get to that, from 2% to 4%, right? And just that math allows for a lot more resources, and it allows for people to think of work differently. Like I said, this answers a couple of questions. People will do work on what they want to work on, not what they need to work on to make a living. And whether you're an entrepreneur, and that was the question, how do you focus on impact? You'll have the freedom to focus on the most impactful thing that you think you're capable of impacting. And so I think we have to think in terms of this small kind of change. It's not small, between 2 and 4% GDP growth, but it's well within the realm of imagination, especially if you think of AI as a hugely deflationary technology. Even measurements of GDP growth will be fundamentally wrong. The cheaper computers get, the lower the GDP growth, which is silly because everybody now has at least $1 million computer from 1990 in their pocket. So leaving aside measurement problems, I think we'll see this kind of ability to free up to either have an impact as an entrepreneur or equity, or I forget the third question. Why don't we go last question on this side, and we'll take 3 questions on this.
Shout it out, and I will try to repeat it for everyone else.
Hello. Hey, Vinod. What are your thoughts on autonomous AI agents? They just don't share the information. They just do the things for you. For example, you can say, hey, go and build a web application for me, or take my $10,000 and multiply it. My second question is, what are your thoughts on AI that don't necessarily take the instructions from humans? They operate on their own goals.
Autonomous agents.
Why don't we have the second question and the third question, and then I apologize, we'll have to stop.
Thank you, Vinod. So my question...
Speak close to the mic.
Thank you. So my question, both of you guys mentioned about AI proliferation. So how should the traditional company should rethink workforce, be it hiring, retention, or even attrition for that matter?
Okay. Future of work. Okay. Question 3.
So, Sam Wong, Fundable Startups. I have a very practical question for everybody here. Most entrepreneurs need an advisor, but First Round Capital says most advisors underdeliver. What advice would you give to the people here to pick a good advisor?
Okay. So let me answer the first 2 questions together. I do believe autonomous agents will run around society for every person. In fact, just somebody was building a fairly large 3,500 megawatt renewable power plant. They were in my office this afternoon. They said, what do you think of electricity demand? And I said, I've not seen a single forecast that says every one of us in the US will have 20 agents running around doing things for us. And the power cost in kilowatt hours per inference, and our agents will be making hundreds, if not thousands, of inferences, compute out to be pretty significant compared to, say, all the electricity you use in your house. Add to that all the electricity you'll use because people will have electric cars. We have a discontinuity in power consumption in this country, but we will have the ability to use these kinds of agents, and I do think we'll see a very different world. We might see a different hardware device than a phone. Because you can do with voice everything you could do through a phone took much longer to do. I hate opening up my phone, opening an app to find something. So I do think the nature of how we interact with technology will change. I'm pretty sure in 10 years, nobody will learn how to use SAP or Oracle or Salesforce. We'll say, here's what I got done in English, and the AI will do it for you. It will be an agent. So in that sense, my view is even within 10 years, we'll add 1 billion programmers in the sense of they'll be able to get systems to do things. Make API calls, for those of you who are coders, do BPA, business process automation, or RPA, or any of these things will be done by agents. And they'll even code for you. And for the first time ever, we'll be writing code to be used only once, because it's so cheap. It'll be written you'll specify it in English language. Your agent may ask you to clarify what happens if A and B, because you didn't think about specifying a corner condition. But you'll be interacting, and computers will adapt to human beings instead of human beings adapting to using Epic. If you're how many doctors here? Not too many. They hate using Epic. Or SAP, or learning Salesforce. You won't have to do all that. So that is the world. What can companies do, which was the second question I got.
Agents that are autonomous and set their own goals.
Yeah, so I'm not a big, look, is there a danger an AI agent sets its own goals and kills humanity? Yeah, but I just wrote a blog. The chance of that happening are about the same as an asteroid hitting planet Earth and destroying humanity. That over 100 years is roughly a 1 in 10,000 probability that an asteroid will hit Earth and will destroy humanity as we know it. Will an agent do that? Yeah, if it's similar probability, I say, what's the larger risk? The real risk I worry about, hundreds of millions of Russian or Chinese bots in our election, interfering with our election next year. Not this sentient AI. You know, relative risk-wise, it's a trivial risk compared to the real risk of AI in the hands of bad nations or people. Whether it's Putin or President Xi, or I worry about that way more. To your question, what should companies do? What smart companies do? You know, we are invested in a company called GitLab. If anybody is codes, they understand GitLab. I was talking to the CEO, this was probably earlier this year in February, March, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, and he was trying to pick my brain on where I thought AI was evolving. He said, I'm going to take 25% of my engineering force and say, only work on AI. Radical change is needed. We've seen that from really big companies like Microsoft. They've dramatically changed what their priorities are. And we're seeing that at Google. So I do think companies can respond, but most companies are thinking very incrementally instead of saying this is existential. So I forgot the last question.
How do you pick a good advisor?
So there's a pretty common retweet of a tweet I had many years ago, and I first said this publicly in talks like this 10 years ago. The single most important decision an entrepreneur makes, and this is a good note to end on, is whose decision to trust on what topic. You know, if you ask your friend, they're not the right expert. Unless they happen to be a successful entrepreneur, built a big company. That's a hard decision I don't know how to advise. You know, other people will make obvious mistakes like, hey, my friend was in marketing at IBM. They don't know what it's like to market in a startup, different world. They'll ask somebody with the label marketing person. And that's a huge mistake. Like, who's caused the kind of change you're trying to make happen? That's who you should look to advice for, and probably ask 4 of them because their experience will be different. And then go back to, as an entrepreneur, having your opinion based on the best advice you can get. It's a very hard question to answer, and that's why I specifically say, whose advice to pick on what topic? Because it may be different people on different topics, and depending upon the business you're in. But let me end there. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, everyone, big round of applause. Great job, Vinod.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. So stick around. We're going to have the after party across, well, actually, let's hear it for Carnegie College, Silicon Valley Bank, and all our sponsors. Let's hear it for our video team and our audio team. So there are 3 choices for the after party: the Rosewood, the patio, or Pizza My Heart. And actually, the after party is going to be, it's actually going to be across the courtyard. So we have to leave the building by 9 p.m., but we have the courtyard till 11 p.m. So thanks for coming, and I'll see you at the after party.